Hey everybody, this is Joel Toppin again, and this is video number 4 of Navajo Wars. And what I want to do in this next video is talk a little bit about the player's operations segment. We already showed how the enemy is going to operate. They're going to collect action points and they're going to spend them. The only time they're not going to spend the action points is certain instructions will tell them not to, or if they don't have enough APs to execute the instruction on the topmost counter of the active column here on the enemy instruction display. So we've explained how the enemy works. Let's show how the player works. The player is going to use APs a little differently than the enemy. First of all, they're going to be a little bit harder to come by. There's one other thing that happens with an historic event, and it's a new rule, and I forgot to do it when we executed the historic event. But one of the things that happens during a historic event is it actually wipes out the player's APs. So this should have gone to 0 here. And so we definitely would have had no opportunity then to operate on this particular operations card here. So that always wipes out your APs, sets it to 0, which will really screw up your plans because saving APs is kind of a difficult thing to do, and you're going to use them mostly reactively or preemptively against the enemy. When given the opportunity to conduct an operation, you have 3 options available to you. You may operate, which means move your families around the map, raid New Mexico, destroy enemy outposts, or at least attack and try to destroy enemy outposts, plant corn so that you can feed your people. Basically, you're going to be that's what you're going to be doing during an operation: moving around, fighting, planting, that sort of thing. Or if you are in an area in a raid box with a raid box value of 3 or less, you can do absolutely nothing, not spend any movement points, and collect 1 action point. So by passing, you can actually generate some action points. But you have to be in a raid box 3 or lower. You can't be up here in RB6 or RB5. You have to be down in these lower raid box value areas in order to pass and collect APs. So that's the operation you're going to be doing more than anything else, is just the simple operations. The other thing that you can do, the second thing you do, is what's known as planning. What planning allows you to do is collect 1 AP for every elder on the elder display, but the cost is then all the elders will slide to the right, making them more capable, but also bringing them closer to the end of their life. You may then do some powerful but very cool special elder actions. You may then use your women to create trade goods, manufacture trade goods. Trade goods are very important because they allow you to re-roll the dice, to offset a really bad die roll or something, to negotiate with the enemy, conduct diplomacy against hostile Indian tribes. These are things you can do with trade goods, so they're very valuable in the game, and you can only create them when you undertake the planning operation. You can also use your men to conduct diplomacy with other tribes or conduct warfare against enemy tribes. If you sense that the Ute tribe is going to attack you, for example, there's an instruction here for a Ute raid. If it's sitting way up here, maybe you want to go ahead and attack them and try to bump them off, because if you attack them successfully, then their counter will come back over to the standby column and it'll swap places with a random counter here from the standby column. So, and at the beginning of the game, we actually have a couple enemies on here. We do have the Ute, and there's in some games you'll have the Comanche as well. In this particular game, we didn't draw their instruction tile out. And I should mention, in the instruction tiles, at the beginning of the game, there's actually 14 of them. There are 12 spaces for instruction counters, but there are 14 counters, 2 of which are randomly removed, thus giving the enemy a subtly different mix of instructions every time you play, which again enhances replayability. The third type of operation available to the player is one that we're not going to do here now for a number of reasons, but that is known as the passage of time instruction. When you undertake passage of time, there's 2 negative things that you have to be able to do. One is you have to be able to feed your people. It costs 1 food point to feed each population counter on your family boxes and on the elder display. So right now we have 3, 6, 9, 12 people that need to be fed. Each area on the map will feed 3 people minus the number of drought counters and rancho counters in that area. Well, there's no ranchos in the Spanish period, and right now we don't have any drought markers. So we have a maximum amount of food we could generate right now is going to be 3 for Canyon de Chelly, 3 for San Juan Valley, and 3 for Shiprock. So that's 9. That leaves us 3 short. And so the 3 unfed people would then be removed to the out-of-play box. That's bad. So we don't want to do that yet. We haven't had a chance to plant corn. Corn counters will give you the ability to feed your people. They have a random value ranging between 0 and 3, with most of the counters having a value of 2. There's actually only one that has a value of 0, 2 with 3. The rest are 1s and 2s, most of which are actually 2s. So if we took an operation here and planted some corn, we would be set up then to do a passage of time. The other negative thing that happens during passage of time is that your elders, you have to roll to see if they die. So you roll the die and for each elder, and if the die roll falls within the range beneath that counter, that elder dies and goes to the out-of-play box. So that is the other negative thing to passage of time, but there are some very positive benefits. As the enemy attacks you, counters will be removed from your families and placed in the passage of time box. And the only way to get them back is to take a passage of time. Also, during passage of time, that's when you'll be able to play cards from your hand and to create new population pieces and, in a sense, grow your tribe. So passage of time is very powerful, but you have to prepare and set up the opportunity to be able to use it properly. The other benefit is your animals will multiply. So if you have any animals in the resources box, you will gain a bonus for each animal you have in here. You'll get an additional animal. So let's say for example, I want to make sure I phrase this properly. Let's say I have a horse and a sheep in here. As long as I have at least 1 horse in here, I'll get another horse. If I have 3 horses in here during passage of time, I'll get 1 more horse. That's how it works. If I have a sheep counter in here, at least 1 sheep, I get to add 1 more sheep counter when I take passage of time. So that's the other benefit to it. You'll also be able to roll a die and remove a drought marker from an area corresponding to that die roll. So if I roll a 3, I could remove a drought marker from Zuni Mountains. If there's no drought here, I could remove one from an adjacent area like Hopi Land or the Shiprock area. So right now there's no drought, so the benefit's not there. We don't have any animals. There's no benefit there. We don't have any population pieces to place. There's no benefit there. So there really is no benefit right now to taking passage of time for us. There's only penalties. So that leaves us with a choice to operate or do planning. Now the event card itself, the operations card itself, has as its major event the shaman event, which allows us, if we undertake planning, to have a special advantage. Look at the next 3 cards, rearrange them in any order, and then put them back on the top of the deck. That's super cool. So that's actually what we're going to do here. We're going to take planning. Now there's another thing that planning does for us, so let's just walk through the whole thing. First of all, we take all of our elders, slide them 1 box to the right, gain 1 action point for each elder, so moved. Next, each of these elders may execute a special elder action. Elder actions involve a couple things. First of all, you can, on a successful elder action, you can swap military and culture points on a 1-for-1 basis. You can try to increase the ferocity of a family, and if it successfully increases the ferocity, then your military points go up by 1. You can try to decrease the ferocity of a family. Say the elders are trying to tone down that particular family group. If their ferocity is able to drop, if you're successful in that, you'll gain 1 culture point. So that's what your elders can do. It may sound weak, but that's actually very powerful capability. These are the guys that influence, and gals, that influence your tribe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this elder here, and in order to succeed in an elder action, I have to roll a die within the value of his death rating. Okay, so the closer he is to death, the more powerful he is. See, he's older, he has more influence in the tribe. So with this guy, I got to roll a 1 or a 2, and I'm going to try to increase the ferocity of this family. And I rolled a 1, which is perfect. I get to increase his ferocity. Oops. increased it too much. He goes up 1. Now his evasion modifier dropped a little bit, but I'm not worried about that because he's far back in Canyon de Chelly, and we're talking about war here with the Spaniards. And what that did is that increased his military points for the tribe. Now, once a family has been modified by an elder, once an elder has influenced a family, he cannot influence, or excuse me, that family cannot be influenced by one of the other elders. So none of these guys can influence that particular family. Next thing, I think this one here, we're going to try to swap points, try to even our keel a little bit. So he rolls another 1. So we'll have our military points increase by 1, but we'll decrease our culture points by 1. And the last guy I'm just going to pass on because that's really all I'd want to do right here. Next thing we get to do is our women can spend action points to purchase trade goods. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We have 3 action points, APs. We're going to spend all 3 of them, which allows each family, each woman in a family can spend 1 AP to create 1 trade good. So we have 3 women, 3 APs. That allows us to create 3 trade goods, and that's the only trade goods we have available to us in the game. If we had the weaving cultural development in the game, one of the benefits of that cultural development is it places additional trade good counters into the game. These counters are actually considered to be in the game box. They're not available to play. Alright, I don't want to use my men to do any tribal warfare or diplomacy, and furthermore, I have no APs with which they could do so. So that's the end of that. The last thing we get to do is we get to take this card into our hand. That's right, that's how planning helps you in another way. This is how you collect cards into your player hand. You take a planning operation. Now, if you take a planning operation and you put the card in your hand, you still execute the major event and the minor event on the card. So we'll just leave it out here for the time being, because now that concludes our operation. That's all we can do with planning. So now the operation segment is done. We execute the shaman event. So I'm going to look at the card deck here, pull off the top 3 cards, look at them, and I'm going to put them back in any order I choose. I'm going to want this one to be next, and this one after it, and then the one after that below. So that's the order I want to have them in. I'll explain some other time why I chose to do that. I'm running out of time in this video, so I don't want to have to explain all of that. Actually, I think those are stuck together. That's right. All right. Let's see, which one do we want on the bottom? That one. All right. All right, stuck those on the top of the deck. So the major event is fulfilled. Next, we do one of these minor instructions. We're going to roll a die. We rolled a 1 again, which causes these 2 counters to swap places, which doesn't have a whole lot of meaning right now because the major event here is still in play, but it will impact things down the road. And now this card here ordinarily would be discarded, but since we took planning, it goes into our hand. And that means when we take passage of time next turn, we'll be able to place a new elder on the elder display. So that was our first operation of the game, and gives you kind of a flow of how the player operations are going to work. In our next video, we'll go through a couple cards a little bit faster to show how some of this shakes down. One last thing, as a part of the planning operation, I nearly forgot, is all of the cubes are going to cycle. Cubes in the recovery box are returned to the raid pool. When that's done, any cubes in the raided box would then slide down to the recovery box. So we've executed that, and we're all done.